Good morning. Today we're going monk mode. My name is David. This is week 21 of 52 churches in 52 weeks. As always, very appreciative if you hit the like button and subscribe to stay up to date with this ongoing spiritual challenge as we check out a new church each week. Also, if you like to follow Instagram, I always have a nice rolling list of all the church visits with photos, videos, and just initial observations when I'm done visiting the church visit for that week. So this past weekend, I drove out to St. Louis, Missouri to attend the St. Louis Abbey to see how monks do church. So in the first 52 churches in 52 weeks, I wrote a book about it. It's on Amazon. All the information is below. I drove out to Massachusetts to attend the St. Joseph Abbey. And I was very curious to just see how monks did church. And with this particular monastery, they were a bit different because they were the first ever American Trappist brewery. Basically, monks that brew beer and then sell it. Why? So I did some research after I made that church visit, and I learned that in Europe, back hundreds of years ago, especially during the Industrial Revolution, there was a lot of disease, there was a lot of contamination in the water supply. So what monks would do back then is they learned that if you heated up water, you added yeast to it, it would kill bacteria and hence would save lives and kill disease for a lot of people back then. So beer back then was more considered liquefied bread. And as a result, a number of Trappist breweries popped up in Europe. So recently, I want to say within the last 10-20 years, St. Joseph Abbey became the first ever American Trappist brewery. So I was curious why, because with science we've kind of figured out the causes of those type of diseases and illnesses. And what I learned is with a lot of these monasteries, when it comes to the monks, they kind of need to earn their keep. Like they need to bring in some type of income. So with St. Joseph Abbey, they were making jams, and that just wasn't cutting it, especially when it came to monks who were essentially getting older and needed to pay for any kind of health expenses. So they transitioned to beer, and that was able to be a little bit more profitable for the Abbey. So I wanted to visit a monastery for this current 52 and 52 voyage. And when I was looking around for one, I was kind of considering maybe another kind of monastery that would be a little bit more damp looking, I guess. Much more traditional, much older looking. But when I was looking for an interesting monastery to visit, I saw the St. Louis Abbey, and it was so modern looking. From what I understand, a lot of the locals call it the wedding cake church, just due to the design of it. So how do monks, where I have always thought of them as being very traditional, very old school, doing everything to pray, contemplate, help the poor, how do they design and build a church that looks like this? So I already finished up with the visit a few days ago, but had a couple questions, met some really great people, and learned a little bit more about the St. Louis Abbey and what they're all about. So we'll share a couple sights and sounds inside, and I'll be back in about a minute or two just with some thoughts from what I took away. Right off the bat, when I think of monks and I think of a monastery, This is not what I was expecting with St. Louis Abbey, and I should have known that just due to the unique structure of the building itself. But at the same time, by far, this was one of the best Catholic experiences coming from a Protestant that I've ever had in my life. So I'll explain more in just a little bit. But when I first got there, I got there just at this amazing time when the sun was rising, and took a lot of pictures, and you could tell from the outside, like the windows appeared black from outside. And I walked in, but inside it was like this translucent glow, this radiance just shining in to the Abbey, this church structure. It was amazing to see. It's like, how did they do that? They had these available, like a guide to the church. And from what it sounds like is the architects got this polyester type of fiberglass, and somehow they were able to use this fiberglass polyester structure to make it do that. I don't know how they do it, but whatever they did, like the end result was just absolutely amazing. I got in there about 15 minutes before service time, and there was only one monk and one other gentleman that was kneeled at an altar. So like I was just kind of wandering around, and is interesting because all around this circular outside corridor were all these saints, all these altars, and like they almost look like stick figures. It was very strange to me. So I guess they had like some type of contemporary artist design all of these. And when it comes to the saints and who they were for, I can't tell you right off the bat. But just very different. There weren't many monks, and they weren't wearing like the traditional, big brown cloak robe that you may be accustomed to. Here it mainly was like black robes, and then those who were presiding over the service had this kind of like white robe with a little golden hue to it. So not quite, again, what I was expecting. A few nuns walked in. Also, a number of people filled in this sanctuary as well. The monks came in to start kind of the procession. And I guess they have like a processional cross that they walk in. And this was a little different because the cross, it didn't have the top part of it. It was almost like a T. So it was like this stick figure Jesus on a T. And I don't really know the symbolism as to why. I just have never seen that before. A lot of the monks also, when they open up the Bible at the altar, and again, the altar was very beautiful, just with this Georgia granite type of stone. They would walk up to the Bible and they would kiss it. Every single one of them. So that was different. And I couldn't really tell you a whole lot about the service. First off, it was in Latin when it came to the hymns and the songs. Gloria in excelsis Deo, I think. To glory be the highest. Like, that's the only Latin that I got out of it. They also had some of the monks that would give different talks in a sermon, but just due to the way that the building was structured, like the sound just didn't hit the walls right. So I couldn't really understand a whole lot about what he was saying. So I can't really comment a whole lot about that. Eventually they did do Holy Communion, the Eucharist. And I've known in the past, I've never gone up for a Catholic Eucharist before, but everyone around me was going up. And I was just like, I want communion, like I'm going up. So I got some communion. This was the first time. I don't know if I'm supposed to do that as a Protestant. I'm a believer. I believe Jesus Christ died and saved me from my sins. I believe he resurrected. I believe he was ascended. I went up there. I wanted the Lord's Supper, and I just felt good about it. So I don't know if I broke any Catholic rules doing that, but for me, that's what I needed. So the service wrapped up, and I decided to take my time and take a few more pictures. And eventually, I caught the attention of a young man, and his name was Matthew. And he asked, it's like, hey, would you like to join us for coffee and donuts? And I kind of like looked around. It's like, who, me? And he's like, yes, you. Would you like to join us for coffee and donuts? I'm like, well, sure. Why not? And he took me down this, and with Matthew, he was absolutely phenomenal. Like if you ever saw someone where it's like, this guy graduated with a 4.0 GPA, like this was Matthew. Like he had a bow tie, he had a fantastic haircut, but then at the same time, I want to say he was the Schola Cantorium. I think that's Latin for choir, but he did a solo, so I don't know what to call that if you do that solo. So Matthew and I met another father who also joined us as we walked through this hallway. We went into this meeting room, and there was a number of regulars inside. So everyone was just getting coffee, donuts, and they asked me who I was, and I let them know I visit a new church each week. I was from Wisconsin, made a little bit of a drive, and just had some really nice small talk. And eventually I decided just to talk to Matthew on a one-on-one basis to kind of learn a little bit more about the Abbey. And he gave me just phenomenal insights into the St. Louis Abbey and the St. Anselm Parish that was right next door. So one of my questions was, when it comes to these monks, like how do they provide? What's their kind of occupation at this monastery? And as I learned, this was more kind of like a college preparatory school. So they bring in all kinds of different grades as this private school. And from what it sounds like, they're probably one of the top schools in the St. Louis region. So yeah, when it came to this experience, from a monastery, from a monk standpoint, this is not what I was expecting. When it came to the service, what was being taught, especially with the Latin, and my inability to really hear the sermon, like it wasn't the greatest church experience just because I couldn't hear anything. But the invitation from Matthew to meet other members, to meet other regulars in that gathering room or that meeting room, like that had such a positive impact in my entire visit. It was a connection. It was reaching out. And I think as Christians, it's like, yeah, you need to reach out. You need to be able to invite others in to your world. And I think leaving St. Louis Abbey, again, this was by far the best Catholic experience I've ever had. So really appreciate that invite. And it kind of speaks to any church where if you do see someone that's brand new, that you see they've never been inside your church before, talk to them, invite them in, because that can go such a long way for someone that's visiting that's brand new. So tell you what, that's going to wrap up week 21. For week 22, I'm going to be trying to visit a stave church, a Viking church. It's going to be a little bit tricky when it comes to getting over there, but hope to have that to you guys next week. So like and subscribe if you want to stay up to date for the next church visits and future ones after that. Also, if you want to read about the first 52 churches in 52 weeks, it's on Amazon. Links are in the description box below. So thanks for watching, and hope you have a good one.